Hey everybody, happy Monday. It's Meredith Miller here with your Sana Q&As. Remember, the link is below the video in the description if you want to leave a message for me on the page where I'm accepting questions for these Monday Q&As. Please remember to keep them short, like a very short paragraph or maximum 2, but very short so that I have time to read them online and give you a bit of an explanation to your questions. So I'm getting caught up here this week. I'm going to answer this one first. It says, "Hi Meredith, first up, thank you so much for all your wonderful videos. My question for Sana is this. I was an only child raised by 2 narcissistic parents, dad overt, mom covert. We always lived with dad's short temper, but I was mom's golden child for 17 years, and until I became ill, I became her scapegoat. My maternal grandmother, I believe, also had a severe form of BPD. 3 years ago, it had become so bad that they had started to abuse by proxy, and I got out, now virtually no contact. But the unknowing betrayal of a couple of dear friends, now close friends of theirs, felt like it would kill me. While I've done a lot of therapy and worked to recover from the severe anxiety and CPTSD symptoms, I can unfortunately recognize narcissistic tendencies in myself. Any advice on how to work with this? I have a pretty heightened awareness of how I am viewed and what this means in a weird, narcissistic kind of way. I'm pretty desperate to break the cycle and be truly happy, kind, and authentic. Do you have any advice on all of this?" So first of all, I'm really sorry that, you grew up with 2 parents like that. Like, you didn't even have an example of a parent who was capable of love and empathy and emotional connection. And I'm just really sorry, that you went through that by yourself. And I want to tell you, great job on going no contact, like recognizing that that just wasn't going to work for you anymore to have contact with them. Once the abuse gets to that point where it's like abuse by proxy, even, it's out of hand. So, like you talked about, right? So self-awareness is the first step to change, right? First, you have to become aware that there is a problem so that you can fix the problem. So self-awareness is step 1. Action is step 2. Self-awareness without action gets you nowhere. It lets you become aware of the problems, right? But nothing changes. It can kind of start to change in your perception when you start to look at it, but nothing really changes in the physical world until you take action. You have to take action on things that you want to change. So, your ability to take self-responsibility, to self-examine and say, you know what? I have some of those tendencies. Those are called narcissist fleas, by the way. I don't know if you have read anything about that. I would check that out online. Narcissist fleas, or narc fleas for short. That's when you hang out with people, right, who are narcissists or have these, cluster B personality tendencies. You can start to take on those tendencies. It's the same reason why you can take on tendencies of anyone that you surround yourself with. That's why it's so important to take an inventory in your life and really see, like, who are those handful of people, like 5 or 6 people that are the closest to you, that you spend the most time and energy with, even if you're talking on the phone or exchanging emails or other digital contact. Who's really close to you? Because those are the people that you become like. So if you're taking a look around your inner circle and you're like, whoa, yeah, I don't want to be like any of those people, then you're hanging out with the wrong people. You need to get those people to the periphery, right? And focus on bringing people closer to you who actually have qualities that you admire, who are people that are mutually loving and supportive and uplifting and inspiring. So it sounds like you've taken the step to go ahead and get those people out of your inner circle. You went no contact. That's awesome. Great job. That's really, really hard, especially with the family situations, because, the layers of guilt and obligation are so heavy. So good job doing that, and so now, it's your responsibility to recognize those things in you that you don't like. So maybe it's time to get some clarity about, who you are. Like, who do you want to be? Who do you want to be? How do you want to show up in life? Like, when you imagine your ideal self, what does he or she look like? What does he or she act like? How does he or she think and feel? How does he or she treat other people in life? Right? These are really important things to look at. It may not be who you think you are right now, but this is who you want to become. This is your process of growth, right? And becoming the person that you want to be. Like what gives you a sense of purpose? Like why do you want to change? If you recognize those tendencies in yourself, which is great that you see those, what is going to motivate you to take the action to change then? Why would you want to change? What benefit is there? What purpose do you feel behind there that's actually motivating that change? You always want to ask why. Every time you do something, every time you say something, every time you believe in something, it's really good to verify with yourself why. That keeps us from getting caught in those automaton behaviors where we're just doing the automatic thing, that's leading us further and further into insanity and unhappiness and illness and all of that, right? When we examine consciously, why am I doing that? Well, because I believe this and that. Why do I believe that? Right? And then it starts this pattern of unwinding things, and you really look at yourself and you examine more your behaviors, your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, and to give you some clarity as to what you want to do with them moving forward. And so with these fleas, that we're talking about, these narcissistic fleas, you got to recognize those tendencies in yourself, right? So you're probably going to notice these more when you're around other people. It probably comes out a lot more during your interactions with other people than it does when you're home alone, for example. So when you're out with your friends or in a social situation, become really aware of your behavior and your reactions to other people. And maybe you notice like, oh my God, I'm just like mom when I do that. Or oh my God, I'm just like dad when I say that. And so notice those things and recognize that those are not desirable qualities. You don't want those qualities in yourself. You want to break those habits. Those are habits that you were taught, you were conditioned to behave, to react to the world, to react to other people in that way, and that you actually want to behave in a different way. You want to show up in a different way. You want to interact with people in a different way. So if you were your ideal self, how would he or she show up in that moment? Instead of doing that old behavior that's just like mom or just like dad or just like grandma, right? What's the new you? How does the new you respond from a conscious perception, from a conscious intent? And ask yourself, like, what impact do you want to have on other people? How do you want other people to feel when they're with you? How do you want to inspire other people? How do you want to interact with other people? Those are really good questions to ask yourself. It really pulls you out of that automaton behavior and allows you to start examining your life with more consciousness, with more clarity, with more intent. Intent is very important, and then also it's really important to ask yourself, like, why do you want to change? And really dig in deep into that motivation for change. Why do you want to change? Because human nature, I think, is basically not to change until the crisis hits. Like we go through life repeating the same things over and over again. We know sometimes that we really need to change that thing, but we avoid it. We don't do it. Why? I don't know. Maybe it's just human nature, right? And then suddenly the crisis hits and it's like, oh my God, yeah, I have to change. Like now, like there's no more options. It's time to change, right? The benefit is when you can recognize that you're moving down that trajectory before you get to that crisis point, and you can say, whoa, and you grab the reins of control in your life and you say, okay, actually, I want to redirect over here. I want to redirect my behavior, my thought processes, my perspectives of reality in a different way so that I don't keep going toward that crisis. That's awesome when you can pull yourself out before it happens. Sometimes it happens if the crisis hits, and it's through that healing crisis. I don't know if you've heard the term healing crisis. I think it comes from homeopathy, which is a natural form of medicine. And the healing crisis is like when you run into some kind of life, circumstance, and then all of a sudden it starts coming up. Like all the pain comes up to the surface. It could be physical, it could be emotional, it could be spiritual, it could be all of that. It could be all of that at one time, right? And it feels like things are getting a lot worse, but in actuality, things are just coming up to the surface, and things have to come up to the surface. They have to come back out the way they went in, right? That's the theory behind homeopathy, is that maybe it first started as like a skin rash, right? And then it became some sort of lung issue or large colon issue. And then as you're healing it, suddenly you get that rash again. You're like, oh my God, what's going on? It's like, I haven't had this in years, way back then, but actually it's all that energy coming back out of your body. Well, the same thing happens in the world, right? I mean, just give an example, the election that just happened last week, right? It was between an overt type of cluster B personality and a covert type. Those are the two main candidates, just like your parents, the overt and the covert. And the overt is so easy to see. They reveal themselves. They're so much easier to identify. And in a way, it's almost like they embrace who they are because they're so open with it, right? You kind of know what you're getting into. The covert is the most dangerous because you don't see it. It's so hard to see it. It's so hard to get tangible proof of what's going on. And there's always this denial and always this secrecy and, the perfect mask that's making everybody think that it's actually okay what's going on there, but it's actually really messed up. Right? And so why did the overt option get chosen? Probably because as a society, this is our healing crisis. Like, this is our wake-up call, and it's going to be out in our face and right there so that we can deal with this, versus the covert option, which maybe everybody would have just gone back down to sleep for a while and pretended like everything was okay. That phase in the abusive relationship, right? Where you're convincing yourself everything's okay. It's just going to be fine. It's really not that bad, blah, blah, blah. When it's that much in your face, it's like you have to deal with things, right? And that's where we're at right now as a society, is we're going to have to deal with this. So, recognize what's wrong in your life. Like, recognize what characteristics you have that you want to change, what behaviors you have that you want to change. Don't beat yourself up for them. Recognize it's not your fault that that was taught to you, but it is your responsibility now to change it if you don't like it, right? Because we're adults now. We can't keep blaming mom and dad. Like, yeah, what happened was really messed up, and it's unfair that you didn't have the kind of love growing up that every child deserves. And I hope that you give yourself that love now and know that you are worthy of that love. And it's just unfortunate that you will not have parents who ever know how to love you that way. And if you can find positive examples of like an older man, an older woman, maybe even a couple, right, who they're just really healthy, good quality people, and hanging out with them, it's almost like having a surrogate relationship with parents, the parents you'll never have. And no, they're not your parents. They're not related to you by blood. You're never going to have that kind of situation with them, but it's like their presence in your life can shift the way that you even see your childhood, can shift the way that you see yourself, can remind you that you are worthy of love. You are worthy of love. And I think that's really important as you're going through this healing process, as you recognize the signs of those negative things in you that your abusers had. You recognize you want to eradicate those things from your life. And while you're doing that, don't beat yourself up about it. Don't be so judgmental about it, because it's only going to further remind you that you're not worthy of love, and you are. You are very worthy. I'm sending you a big hug.